like I was saying, let me just do something else also. Very important. Just give me a moment. Usually this helps. Just a second. Spotlight. All right, so I was just spotlighting myself so that it's there. So we're talking about living in the past. Now, there are two aspects to this detractor. I'll try and be fast. Namely, a positive and a negative one. Both end up being or becoming a factor that impedes progress. So in other words, when this thing happens, it's so traumatizing that for most people, it becomes the reason they never progress, okay? This could be called time travel, in that an event in the past becomes a point that impedes the progress of one in their present, such as they cannot go beyond what happened by this event, okay? Negative examples can include failed relationships, bad marriages, being victims of crime, like robbery, violence, like sexual harassment, rape, molestation, violation, violent, abusive relationships between spouses, from parents and guardians, all kinds of physical and mental abuse, failed business, okay, or ventures, and also severe bullying or mockery in younger years, especially adolescents. Now, what happens is such events leave an indelible mental scar that affects many and becomes a mental barrier when opportunities present themselves with potential for progress, but in a model similar to the negative experience. Many have found themselves unable to have a fulfilling relationship. They can't exploit careers. They have failed to exploit business opportunities simply because that opportunity triggers bad memories and thus a defensive reaction. And that then becomes a block that affects the chances for exploiting the opportunity at hand. And as you can tell, this is a major detractor and can be a block to breakthrough and success for many. In fact, there are so many who are so used to this kind of negativity, they even begin to prophesy their own destruction. We call it self-fulfilling prophecies. So a number of people say, you know what, every time it never works, these things never work, and you really begin to believe that this is some kind of thing caused by something outside of you. But the truth is, it's a serious mental state that you are generating because of the experience. In NLP, it's called framing. Your mind is framed to that particular event and then negatively used as a means by which you now operate continuously. Okay, so that's what negatives do. And this is where you see the elements of what we call self-sabotage work. So many people self-sabotage because they do not realize that at a subconscious level, they are repelling opportunities. Unbelievable. And this is done subconsciously. You're not even aware at conscious level what you're doing. You're not aware of the emotions being evoked by this particular thing. That's why some people, they say, it's like, how come they keep, failing to see these opportunities? They don't see them. Or maybe, why do they keep sticking in bad relationships? I mean, these are examples. Some people come from one abusive relationship straight to the next abusive relationship. What has happened there is they are caught to aspects of the past that keep bringing patterns that they are subconsciously attracted. And I know that sounds terrible, but that's just the reality. Now, there's also the opposite side of that. We have what we call positive events, which degenerate into this living in the past phenomenon, okay? Now, these can include, but are not limited to, high past status in business. This is one of the big ones, career or politics. Great past experiences in life, personal or corporate. Great achievements in sport, academia, arts, and entertainment. So many times, such experiences leave people in a great high, okay, from which a number do not come down from. These mountaintop experiences, unfortunately, tend to last only for a season, and then they pass. Now, once that happens, there is the coming back down to earth process, which unfortunately many do not manage too well and remain in some state of grand delusion, okay? And they still try to live and operate on their past glory and achievements, yet Everyone has moved on and does not care less about these things or the achievements and former status. And unfortunately, such persons do not have the mental disposition to make the transition well and end up living a life like one who's been shell-shocked, like a bomb blew up and they're shell-shocked, so they don't know what's going on. And in a daze of denial and delusion. Scary place, friends. Especially people in my age group going further up. If there was something back in the day and they have not been able to transition to the next phase of their life after their somethingness is over, you find they go into the state, right? They still try so hard to sustain as much as can be sustained from the past, yet the present demands their attention and need to come down to earth. So they're supposed to come down to earth, but they're not coming down to earth. They still live in there. Now, anyway, so in such cases, these people fail to see and exploit all current opportunities or make transitions because they feel it to be beneath them and tend to be very bothered by what people think of them if they embrace such opportunities. And unfortunately, many end up going into depression, and in worst case scenarios, they actually die. So, this is very common with politicians. This is very common with people that were in high standing. One great man one time really blessed my heart. He sent a voice note. It was in my mother tongue, but it was a very good voice note. He talked about the fact that, people need to understand and distinguish between the office and themselves. When you're a CEO, when you're MD, or when you're some big shot in some high-flying company, everybody's got so much attention on you. They all want a piece of you. But what is so interesting is that the moment you leave that, some people fail to distinguish between the office they're carrying and themselves. They think that all those accolades are for them. They're not for you, for they are for the office. I think it's Uncle Steve the other time when he was speaking about it, who said it so clearly. That the moment you leave that office, your phone goes silent. It's like even shocking. All of a sudden, nobody is trying to call you that PS. And you just have to transition to the next phase of your life. But a lot of people begin to take that personally, like, oh, so now nobody's, No, the truth of the matter is it was your office that drew this attention. Stories told, and I'll quickly get to the solutions, but stories told of a donkey. In South America, they have these very elaborate festivals. And one of them is a festival where they carry the statue of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and they carry it on carts, and it goes across streets, and people venerate it and bow to it and worship it and what have you. So there was a donkey that was carrying this statue. And this donkey was absolutely blown away by the fact that everybody kept, worshiping it and bowing to it. And it was like, wow, I'm special. I must be special. So, this donkey was strutting about and really beginning to enjoy the attention that it was getting. And as it's strutting about, it really increases the strut, like, I'm the dude, I'm the man, check me out, And in the process of all that strutting, statue falls, right? It just, whoa, boom, falls, breaks to pieces, and people screaming total shock and horror. And then they start to whip this donkey and kick it and beat it. And the donkey's like, hey, what happened? I'm here. No, they were beating this donkey, like really giving it a beating of its life. And as it ran off to the side, it realized that it was what it was carrying that was of interest to the people, not itself. And I think that I think for me is a brilliant illustration of the power of an office and what an office can bring. And we must never forget that the veneration, the attention, the amusement that many have for who many people are is based on their office, not themselves. And so when perchance God is done with that season and moves you to the next season in your life, learn to transition with grace and realize that the attention and all that was about your office. So Solutions, real quick. What follows are ways to overcome both scenarios, the negative and the positive, and stay focused on the present and its great opportunities available for exploit. So let's begin with the negative scenario. They will need to, the people that suffer this problem will need to undergo serious programming of their minds to eliminate the negative trauma that set in. And where it's severe, professional help should be sought and undertaken to identify and treat all psychosis that arises as a result of the past trauma, because some it was terrible physical trauma, mental trauma. Seeking help for many is the most effective way to overcome that state of mind. So where you need therapy, go for therapy. Where you need help, go for help, okay? Where it's mild as to be underlying but serious enough to be an impediment, they need NLP. That's what we teach, neuro-linguistic programming, that will then help them reprogram all things that affect them seriously. In the process, they will also need to work on reprogramming their subconscious mind, which controls 95% of their waking lives. And this can be done very well using 3 key methods. There's a 4th one, I don't really teach it, but subliminal programming, meditative repetition, and high impact events. So these are the 3 things that will change that scenario. So quickly, on the positive events, these are now your former bosses and CEOs who have failed to transition to the next phase of their life. Yes, that's what it is, by Inspector. Yes, it's a mental sub upgrade. I love it. Now, for such, they will need serious. This is now the positive guys, the guys that were, former whatever. So for such, they will need serious subconscious reprogramming that deals with all the living in the past glorious mindset. Okay, they need to be made to understand that life is always lived in the now, and that it is a gift to be alive and in the now. Hence, it's called the present. Okay, so it's your biggest gift every day is the now. And funny enough, whether you think about the future, it can only be experienced in the now. And when you think about the past, that's gone. It's not coming back. It's a used check. It's a check that's expired. There's nothing you can do with it. The only thing that comes to follow you, and this is what I find profound, the thing that follows you from the past is your works. I'll come back to that. Now, this present is what must be unwrapped as it occurs so that it leads to a more exciting present, which you and I call tomorrow. Tomorrow is an illusion, but today is the reality. And what we do today has impact on the quality of our tomorrow, which will be our ongoing present until we depart this reality. Okay? Until we depart this reality. And that's why, for those of you following by way of Zoom, those following by way of Facebook or what have you, we need to be very careful when it comes to understanding in a deeper way exactly what it is that we ought to do at any given time in our lives with regard to the present. That's why I love the whole concept and idea. I call the idea being in the moment. Be in the moment. When your child is born, be in that moment. One day you'll wake up and they will be getting graduation. And you ask yourself, where did all those years go? They flew right past you. Were you so busy you never had time to interact with those kids? You never had time. One of my favorite illustrations I always love to use with relating with living in the now is that when you find a person that's dying on a dying bed, and they are speaking, what is it that dying people ask for? They will always ask for other people. That's why I get amazed when people make pompous statements like, I don't need anybody. I am good by myself. I don't need anybody's approval. Yes, it's true, you don't need anybody's approval. Yes, it's true, you don't need to tell anybody anything. That's my daughter, was just waking up. But the truth of the matter is that every moment is critical. Every moment is a life worth focusing on. So for example, I'm in the moment. She just gave me a morning greeting through a hug. There'll come a day she won't do that anymore. There'll come a day when she'll transition, just like my son and my older sons and daughters. They will transition to the next phase, and you may never experience that anymore. And that's why every moment must be appreciated. That's why I love the Psalms and all these that speak about early in the morning I'll rise up to thee. Learn to appreciate the simple things. When I love what Aunt Sylvia does and Dr. Mwansa in that they really take this whole idea to a whole other level with their mindset change program. And many times I see Auntie Sylvia Sundays put out a chair by her yard and just, it's true, Doc Clinton. Yes, it was a timely appearance illustration of the point. Pure coincidence. But you see that Dr. Monta and Auntie Sylvia will take time to sit out by their yard and just appreciate life in its simplicity. Yes, they have a great life right now. Things are so great for them. But at the same time, this is not something they just started appreciating today. They planned for it. They worked for this. And they got to every moment and stood back and appreciated it. I'm telling you, appreciate people whilst they're there. If you find somebody that's made an impact for you, tell them how much they mean to you. Now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next time. Now, do it. Seize the day. Carpe diem. That's the Latin. And in living in the present, that's the ultimate antidote for living in the past. Because like I said, living in the past is a detractor. The now is what matters. And even as we speak, the moment we started this call is already past. It's gone. It's never coming back. The idea of making up for lost time is the greatest illusion I've ever heard. No, we'll make up for lost time. How do you know you'll have time tomorrow? How do you know you'll be alive tomorrow? Do you control when you're going to die? No, you don't. So every moment you can spend now, spend it. Just do whatever you have to do, but do it now. That's why I'm a big fan of doing it now. I came across something just 2 days ago, which blessed my heart. It was written by someone, but maybe they just didn't put it well. But I love what they say. There's a book written, I don't know who wrote it. It's called The 2-Minute Day, the 2-minute rule. And what's the 2-minute rule? When you are executing programs of any sort, if what you want to execute can be done in 2 minutes, just do it. Don't postpone it. Don't leave it till later. Just do it there and be done and move on. You'll be amazed how much you're able to finish by just that principle alone. Can be done in 2 minutes. Just get it out of the way. And so anyway, live in the now. That's the antidote for living in the past. I hope and pray many of you have been blessed. Sorry about the dodgy internet. We've really struggled, but thank God I moved to this network, which seems much better. And so tomorrow we have Auntie Sylvia coming through with Mindset Change program, and they're going to run further. And I do recall, unless I'm wrong, let me check my diary. Hold on. Tomorrow is the 1st of November, which is supposed to be, I think, Auntie Sylvia's birthday. That's right. So Auntie Sylvia, we look forward. We'll be coming through to your thing and talking and chilling with you. That's it. Yeah, nice. No, that would be very nice. We'll all share the impact and how much of a blessing you've been. I'm using Mindset Change. I have integrated it with my normal schedules. I use a lot of electronic platforms. So what I've done is taken all that Mindset Change stuff and imposed it onto that program. I am intending, hopefully, to get to come back there and do a review with you and with Civil. So that I'll campaign for Civil and then we get that going as well. In fact, I'll be coming to see you. There's some very exciting things in the horizon for that as well. So from myself and everybody here, thank you so much for being a part of what we do. And tomorrow, same time, 7:30, and Sylvia will be on. There'll be further instructions via our usual platforms to tell you what will be going on that special day, which is going to be her 60th birthday. 60th birthday. That's exciting. It's not every day. We live in the moment. I look forward to being part of that. Have a blessed day and cheerio.